Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to Kaiju Connections. My segment on the entertainment headquarters is dedicated to everything big monster kaiju within the world of cinema and television. And right now, joining me is two very special people, very close to my heart, very good friends. From the Metal Tavern Radio, we have the very, very talented, both very talented, DJ Anubis and DJ Neko. So their channel is dedicated to all things heavy metal music, but they also have amazing movie content. So please check their channel out. Also, especially with DJ Anubis and myself, he is a co-host now on my channel for a new segment called the Retro Classic Movie Show, which we had the first one this previous Wednesday. We had a special guest, Fat Samurai Guy, and we discussed First Blood from 1982. And of course, I have frequented his channel as a part of his cinematic synergy. And of course, DJ Neko is his co-host in life and on the channel, and she's always a blast to have on this channel as well. So welcome, guys.
Hello.
She's the boss.
I'm the boss.
So she says.
Well, on this channel, I'm the boss.
Well, thank you for having us, sir.
It's always a pleasure to have you. I love having you on. And this Kaiju Connections is dedicated to Monarch Legacy of Monsters. You know, it's a show that came out just at, I would say, the last part of last year and then continue to the beginning of this year. And it's part of the legendary Monsterverse. And, you know, the show itself, you know, for me, it was an amazing experience. I liked how it was grounded, like the original Godzilla 1954, Godzilla 2014, because obviously it's based around the legendary Monsterverse. It's set in between two very good films, in my opinion, potentially three, how you look at it. And it's like the gateway between those two particular films, and it kind of, you know, has the gap, it like fills the gap in between, which is Godzilla 2014 and of course Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is your favourite film, DJ Anubis. So I'll ask both of yous one by one, when it first was announced, what was your initial reaction to having a Godzilla television show, especially a live action television show? We'll go with DJ Anubis.
I was pretty excited. I mean, the more Kaiju and Monsterverse content we can get, the better. Like, the fact that we're even getting a fourth film in that universe is a great thing. So to have the TV show along with it, I mean, I was pretty stoked. And even when they did, they announced that it was going to be a little bit more of a serious take, not as much monster action, but more of a personal, character-driven storyline. I thought that was still great because, like you said, and I know Neko is a big fan of 2014 too. So that whole like serious content. It's the funny thing with the Monsterverse right now is that it's kind of covering everything. We've got a little bit of the campiness that we're going to probably see in the fourth film with Empire, and then we have more serious stuff like 2014. Then of course King of the Monsters and Godzilla and Kong was a little bit in between that two worlds. So we're getting a little bit of everything in the Monsterverse. So some people have complained about the Monarch series being not good enough in terms of the monster, but if you're somebody that likes the more serious content and you want more story to drive it, then I think you'll be happy. Like I know I was, and I think Neko enjoyed it as well. So,
So Neko, what was your
sorry.
take on it? No, what was your take when you first heard about the show?
So I did not hear about the show actually from DJ Anubis, believe it or not. One of my coworkers, who's also a big Godzilla and Monster fan, um, he and I were talking about Godzilla. We were talking about G-Fest and all kinds of like just. And he's like, do you know that Monarch show is on Apple Plus? And I was like, crap, I don't have Apple Plus. And I really liked 2014 a lot. The biggest thing I liked about it was the whole Monarch angle to it. I liked the whole there's this underground, secret organization, and there's all in 2014 they had all these like little clues that you would see, and to me that was like I do love King of the Monsters obviously because it is nothing but monster, like there's just the monsters are amazing, but 2014 I liked the story. I liked how it was the whole like monarch angle. So ironically his name is Kevin too. So Kevin and I were talking about Monarch and he's like, you got to see it. So I came home and I said to DJ Anubis, have you heard about the Monarch series? He's like, uh-huh. He's like, but we don't have Apple Plus. And I was like, oh, we can get Apple Plus. We can get it. So we got Apple Plus and we started watching it. And I'm like, this is insane. And it's exactly what I wanted. It's almost like a mystery. It felt
Yeah.
like a whole mystery unraveling, and these are brand new characters that we didn't realize like the whole backstory and the back angle of things. And I'm like, I really enjoyed just all the things that were unfolding. I thought it was really cool, like especially since you see again the beginnings of Monarch, and I love how it like jumped through time and like gave
Mm-hmm.
really cool explanations. So I was excited, honestly, and I was hooked from episode 1.
Yeah. Well, when I first heard about Monarch, it was more or less for me personally. I knew they could do it with the effects because obviously the effects have come on so much over the last few years, and we've seen how they've been able to do. No one ever thought one day would get a Star Wars like television show on the levels of the effects and stories like the films, and we got it with the Mandalorian. So on that side of things didn't bother us. I kind of knew they would excel with the effects, and the effects are great in this. For me, it was all about what the story was going to be, and the fact that it's called Legacy of Monsters, and it's telling the story from the point of one family and all the different generations throughout, from when Monarch first started up to present day. I really was interested, and I think that's what grabbed a lot of the fans of what the initial plot was going to be. But then the plot sounds great, but it's how you execute the plot, and if you make it
Exactly.
interesting enough to keep you hooked. And I think there are a couple of filler episodes in this, but for the most part it was a really interesting show.
And I didn't
So
mind. I see what you say about the filler episodes, but I honestly, because I actually cared about the core group of characters so much, when you have like a filler episode that's giving some backstory to their personal life, I was genuinely interested because you're like, these are interesting characters. And since these characters actually bring something to the full plot of the story, you do want to know backstory. You do want to know like how these people ended up where they were.
absolutely. And so we'll just talk a little bit about the show itself. So obviously it's based on Godzilla by Toho, aka Legendary, and it was developed by Chris Black and Matt Fraction. And it had each episode had so many different directors, but the main cast is Anna Sawahi, Kirsty Clemens, Ren Watabe, Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell, Mari Yamamoto, Andre Holmes, Joe Tippett, and Elisa Lazowski. So really strong cast. And I think each cast member did well in the roles that they were given. But for me, the ones that stole the show were obviously the two Russells and the character of, the character of Keiko, who was
Yes.
obviously, for me, as you know, the plot starts and you see the flashbacks on Skull Island with Bill Randa, who in the episode 1, it's Bill Randa on Skull Island. And as you know, if you've seen Skull Island, which is the 3rd movie in the franchise, there's a scene during when they've survived the attack initially from Kong, and then they go into the jungle, and then they're attacked by the mother long-leg spiders. And you see the sequence where basically the soldiers from Vietnam and the group are fighting for their lives. But the one aspect that you didn't see in that is, where did Bill Randa go? He kind of just disappears. And this is the great thing I loved about the show. Like I said at the beginning, it shows you things that were happening off screen in other parts of the island, or it shows you like events that transpired in between 2014 in the past and maybe further along, because I think the show's actually initially starts obviously during Skull Island, but then the first episode, it's revealed it's in 2015, after
G-Day,
after G-Day, after the events of 2014. So I just thought the whole plot in the beginning, first episode, starts with a bang, because you discover that Bill Randa, he hides this folder that has all his information about Monarch and the events that transpire that we'll later see in the show. And then you get to see his daughter, who her dad went missing. She goes to Japan, and then she discovers she's got a half brother. So straight away, and this is Bill Randa's son's children. So obviously Bill Randa was played by John Goodman in Kong Skull Island. Then it's his son, and then the 2 leads in the first episode are his grandchildren.
Yes. I think that's pretty wild. I'm glad that they got the cameo. Like, they got the John Goodman cameo. It kind of to keep tying into like what we've already seen. Yes. I agree with you where you get to see things that were off screen. Also, like, you think we forget, like, for us, we're G fans and we're like, man, Godzilla is destroying everything, yay! But then when
definitely
you
a G fan.
Yeah,
definitely a G.
I got my Mothra on, but we get excited.
Which Mr. Lambert got for
he did.
Neko there.
My
So.
Mothra. See, you can see my Mothra. But what I mean is, we think about Godzilla movies and we're like super excited because Godzilla is like destroying the city. But what this series really brought was like, this destruction is really, it's devastating, and people lost their lives, and you're saying, the off-screen things that didn't happen in the movies, you kind of get that feeling as you're watching it, like, this place is quarantined because this is where the majority of like the destruction is, and then you see the stories, the side stories of just what we consider normal everyday people, of what happened to them.
Yeah, and it's like what you said as well, Anubis, right at the beginning when you were talking about the Monsterverse, how it started off like basically the Showa era, like a majority of, die-hard Godzilla fans are considering the legendary Monsterverse the brand new modern-day Showa era, because like in the 1950s, Godzilla 1954 was very serious, very dark, had a very strong messages about nuclear and atomic, bombs. And then as it progressed, it got goofier and goofier, and it seems that the legendary Monsterverse, especially if you've seen the trailers for the brand new one, Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, it's clearly following the formula from the Showa era. And obviously, even within the Showa era, you had odd films that had strong messages that could still be goofy but serious all at the same time. And I find with the show, you had a very grounded 2014, a very grounded Skull Island, and King of the Monsters, I've always said, is a love letter from a fan to the fans. And then Godzilla versus Kong very much was, writing, people want fights, I'm giving them fights. And I'm hoping the new Empire is going to be a mixture of both. But it's nice to have this show bang in the middle of what we've had that is continuing the 2014 theme and feel of being very grounded, very serious. And one thing that I don't think many kaiju films actually show is the aftermath of an attack. You know, some of them do, like 2014, with 1954, after the initial attack by Godzilla in Tokyo, you see the destruction and, you know, the chaos. But the majority of times when he's seen as a hero or an anti-hero, it's basically he invades a city, defeats a monster, destroys shit, goes back to the ocean, and it ends. Where with 2014, you see in the aftermath, and one of the scenes I really enjoyed is when she's in the taxi from the airport, and but prior to that she's in the plane and you see them contaminating the plane, and then the next thing she's in the airport and she's seeing the kaiju warnings on the floor with the symbols, and then as she's in the taxi she's heading to like this apartment that she doesn't know belongs to her half brother. You're then seeing basically them giant missile like launchers on the sides of buildings or motorways, so they're preparing themselves for another attack. So, and you can tell there's like an atmosphere in the air. Is this going to happen again? And you don't generally get that normally in these types of films. It's normally monster versus monster, fuck things up, end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that gives it more like a human aspect, because just imagine if that really did happen. I mean, granted, it is far-fetched, but who knows what really is out there? We don't know in life. So how would the world react to having giant monsters attack? It would be exactly like that. Just think about like recent tragedies or recent issues that we've dealt with as the world. Like, I mean, COVID. There's COVID, there was COVID warnings, there was like you cannot enter without your COVID shots. I still had to travel a lot when COVID was on the uprise, and there was like COVID this and COVID that, and stand 6 feet apart, and there's little stickers on the ground. And you have to think, as people, if we're really going to prepare ourselves for a monster attack, then how would the government react? It felt very COVID like, all the monster like warnings.
It'd be
and stuff.
very global, because you look at how the world is right now. You know, we got these random wars and battles going across the globe in different countries. If you had to actually deal with like an outside threat that had no allegiance to any country, to anything, they're just random.
Yes.
We would be like more concerned about protecting our own countries, our cities from these kaijus, even if they weren't really aggressive, just because they're so big.
Even just walking to
knocking
destroy,
into buildings would just kill a bunch of people. So so in that way you almost become united globally, because you're like on the alert of what's going on with the possible kaiju sighting or attack.
And even like in the first episode, it's kind of hinted that not everyone believes what happened in San Francisco happened, that it was some sort of media stunt or
like
some political angle. And obviously we know throughout the films it's not. But for me, that was my favourite part of the first episode, that getting to know the different generations of the cast, of the families, and then this real life feeling of preparing and of an attack, like in a terrorist, it feels like in a terrorist attack, but obviously
you can
in
feel
this,
the fear.
yes, it's from a kaiju. So my next question is, after the first episode, which starts it off with a bang and we're introduced to these characters, what was your feelings with all the characters that we are introduced to throughout the show after this point? So we'll start with Anubis. So as the story progresses, we get to see flashbacks from the past and the future, past and the present. So how did you feel with how they handle the timelines in the new characters?
Well, at first it was a bit confusing, because you had to kind of put together names with the young ones that we were watching in present day. So it was, for probably a couple episodes, it took me a minute to connect all the dots. I mean, even by like I think episode 5, I was turning to Neko like, yeah, such and such. No, no. She's like, no. This one is this one. She belongs to this one. And I'm like, oh,
The
okay,
family
okay.
tree.
Yeah, so I kind of like got some stuff confused because it was hard keeping track of everybody. So in some ways, jumping around the timeline can be a bit confusing if you're just not paying really close attention. But at the same time, I think I watched a bit of Rob from ETN. He had like a review of this like about a month ago, and he had some cool things to say that I thought I kind of agreed with. And one was, I think for me, I kind of attached more to the older group than the newer, younger ones.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the other thing I find interesting is, you know, Godzilla fans are finicky, like we are.
Mm-hmm.
So in some hands, you have people saying, "Well, I'd rather just have the campiness or just a bunch of monsters smashing and crashing." But then there's other ones, you know, that come and say, "Well, I like a solid story. I like, you know, Godzilla -1 is an incredible story, with Godzilla action." But you can make the argument that if you're somebody who doesn't or likes a lot of Godzilla or a lot of monster action, Godzilla -1 doesn't really bring that per se. It's just a very strong story that has Godzilla in it, much like the original 54.
Yes.
So it's very just funny how fans we want certain things, but then we want like they won't like King of the Monsters because the characters are just it's poorly written, right? The characters. So we enjoy the monsters, but then there wasn't enough of it. But then how do you compare that to like a series like this where we're concentrating on good story development? So for me, I like it all. And I can sit there and nitpick certain movies all day long, but the reality is I think we'd all agree, at least here, and I know in the Dojo Army, that the more kaiju movies and stuff you get, the better for all of us because it was dormant for so long.
Yeah.
So
you have fits and starts of it here and there, and like you say, you would have like the odd thing that wasn't a kaiju movie but was kind of a monster movie, like the Sharknado films, or when we did obviously Cloverfield. But I think the last time we spoke that Cloverfield for me was the one that got the ball rolling for Pacific Rim in 2014, because one, it was a mixture of two things that were one thing that was popular at the time, which was the lost footage films. You know, that was a big craze for a long time, thanks to Blair Witch Project. Because when that came out, you didn't know if it was real or fake until the filmmakers had to come out and say, "Oh,
I knew it was fake."
I was not with him at the time when Blair Witch came out. When was that? Do you remember? But 2000
or 2000.
Yeah, we were not dating yet.
Actually, I think it might have been 99.
And my group of friends and I, we 100% believed that the Blair Witch Project, because
they tried to sell
I don't know if you know this, Kevin, or not, but it took place in a real place in Maryland, Burkittsville.
Yeah.
So like for us, it was like really, it's an hour away at most, maybe 45 minutes. So we were the Blair Witch Project to my friends. We're like, oh my god, it really happened, and there is all kinds of crazy like colonial
I bet they got a lot
stuff.
of people going out there too.
Oh yeah, they did. Us. And we're like, there's so much old colonial crap around here and blah, blah, blah. And the internet was still brand new. So there was like the crazy Blair Witch websites that popped up. And I agree with you. Like,
no, it's massive, great marketing. I mean, the actors hid for a little while. They didn't want to be seen. They wanted to think, oh yeah, they're not really here anymore. So it was good.
It's the same with Cloverfield. That had an amazing advertising campaign online. Like they had the slushy website, and they had they had the oil mining website that apparently was real, that represented the mine. You know, and they had like odd little clips of things exploding and stuff. So, but that was way back when you could do stuff like that, where the internet wasn't as prominent as it is today.
And you know, to that point, kind of like what we were seeing in the show, the world is gigantic, right? So if there was someone not living anywhere near San Francisco and they're just seeing like shit on the internet, and they know now like people can fake things and people can easily CGI things, it's not a far jump to say this is faked. This is faked by the government. I live in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Nothing happened here. We're not seeing any effects. I think that the government is trying to scare us. This is all like a whole, scare tactic,
until
fake
Which is
2019.
what the taxi driver who in the first episode who's going taken out of this apartment, he says, "Well, I'm a podcaster. It's just a political stunt by the government." So what you're saying is true. With how good CGI is, and actually even to this day there was something on my newsfeed about it had been confirmed apparently that this UFO footage had been confirmed real by the government. Well, if that was true, then guess what? It would be worldwide news. So it did look realistic, but like you say, it wasn't real at all. It was just another fake thing. But that's how good it was, and it was so convincing. So yes, like we were going back to it how the first episode starts really sets the tone for the rest of the show. So I'm just going to talk.
People. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was gonna say, as
Oh no,
people, we are easily influenced by whatever we see and whoever you're around. So
definitely.
that is 100% believable how that taxi driver acted.
Yeah. So it felt real and authentic. So I'm just gonna go and talk since we'll try and move quickly through the plot and stuff. So I'll just talk about some of the characters. So in the first episode, we're introduced to Kate Randa, who was obviously the daughter of the Bill Randa's son. What was his name? He was Hiroshi Randa. And obviously she's suffering from PTSD from the events of 2014. So then you had Casey Clemens, who plays May, who's a former employee of Experimental Technologies, which has a big plot twist. And she's in Japan because she's hiding out from the situation she's under. And then you had I forgot. I've Kentaro. That's Ren Watabe. He plays Kentaro, who's an artist and Kate's half brother. And then eventually, that's the modern day cast. And then
there's one more with Kentaro's ex May that we run into as well.
Yeah, I loved May.
Yeah, well, May, who's played by Kirsty Clemens, who is from Applied Experimental Technologies.
Yep.
And then if you take away from them two, the people who are in the modern times but aren't a part of that group who's played by Joe Tippett is Tim, who's a part of Monarch. Then this for me was like a chef's kiss, because I always loved 2014, and I always was the very first opening scenes when you actually see, Sandra Brody, she passes, and then you see obviously what happens there. I liked how this character, the actress Alyssa Kasolski, plays a character who initially is just called Duval. But as the plot progresses, it turns out it's Sandra Brody's sister, who passed at the beginning of 2014. So another amazing plot twist and connection you didn't
Easter
see
egg.
coming. Yeah, so that's the modern cast, and then obviously you do have Kurt Russell as the older Lee Shaw, and then you have Wyatt Russell, who plays the younger Lee Shaw, and then you have Andrew Holmes, who plays Bill Randa, the younger version of the John Goodman character. And then obviously you have who plays, we said her name before, me minds went blank. Mari Yamamoto, who plays Keiko. She plays Keiko, who is the mother of Bill Randa. Sorry, the mother of,
Hiroshi.
Hiroshi. So they're the main cast, and as you know, after the first episode happens, as the plot progresses, and there's a whole mystery, and it's surrounded about the whole Monarch situation and family and the group. you then find out that the father is doing something. He's trying to basically solve the puzzle of there's these energy sources, and the energy sources are apparently linked to what potentially could be another kaiju attack, a giant awakening, if you will. And obviously that
Yolanda's
brings...
files.
Yes, and it's all connected to all this information that, you know, all of the members of Monarch from the past have built together. And then obviously you get the flashbacks of when Bill meets Lee Shaw for the first time, and
Keiko.
obviously in Keiko, and the first episode or the second episode what ends where you assume Keiko has demised.
When she falls into that pit.
And she gets kind of dragged down by them bug things.
Yep.
And
Endoswarmers.
Is that what they're
Yes.
called? Endoswarmers? Cool.
Endoswarmers, and then all of a sudden you think she's gone up to this point, and as the plot carries on, they then have to recruit the older Lee Shaw, who is played magnificently by Kurt Russell. And I
He
think,
didn't know that it was Kurt Russell's son at first. I was like, that's Kurt Russell's son who's playing the younger him.
I said, whoever got this younger actor to portray the younger Kurt Russell looks exactly like him.
I was like, that's his son.
Well-
He's like, what?
Oh, well, that makes sense. There you go.
It was perfect.
so, well, this is the whole thing with why they wanted to do this show in the rules, because you know they weren't bothered. They always, I think, in the end wanted to have a show or a film and be in the same show or film. But I think what really attracted them to this, and I think they've both said in interviews, is the fact that they're not playing opposites to one another or two separate characters and having to act against each other. They're both father and son are playing the younger and the older version of the exact same
perfect.
character, and
Yeah.
it was perfectly cast.
Did you like the
And-
mannerisms and everything? You see like the younger and the older version, and they just kind of have the same like gestures and everything.
And if we progress through the story, so they discover that their father is basically still alive. They end up in Antarctica, where we are introduced to our first major. Is it no? I think it's the second major.
Second one.
The
First one we're
ma-
introduced to is the one at the ship.
Iron
called the
Dragon.
Iron Dragon, yeah.
Yeah, you've got, this is another callback to Skull Island, where we have the flashback between Lee and Randa and Keiko, where they're investigating a ship, which turns out to be the ship that you see John Goodman's older version of Bill Randa basically talking about how he was on this ship and this creature attacked it. It had no conscience. It was evil. And then you actually see the ship in
the
all
middle
its
of
glory.
nothing.
And it's a
Oh,
time
the part where he found his footlocker
Yeah.
and he found all his stuff.
Yeah.
That was such a nice touch.
Yeah, also that when you bring up the second kaiju, like the frost bark, that thing is cool. Like I wanted to see more of that thing.
Yeah, well, all I'm gonna say is my room is fucked if they bring out the figures,
Oh
because
no! I think him too.
I've so far, because of how a stellar job Higher Toys has been doing, I've virtually got a lot of their stuff. But cracking on with the plot, after that we're introduced to the Iron Dragon, which is smaller at that time, and just look badass, look evil as fuck, was just
She's
a
a
beautiful
gold.
creature. We
It's crazy.
then progress to when they go to Antarctica. No, it's Alaska. Sorry.
Alaska.
And they then are introduced to the Snowvalk, and I love the design of it. I actually really do like the designs of a lot of the kaiju in this, and this is where things get changed more, where they start to get more fully in depth with this mystery of Monarch.
Yeah, it should be noted because, like, you know, despite the fact that we're more kind of interested and emotionally attached to the older trio, the newer ones, you know, they're playing catch up with, you know, Kurt Russell's character, older, you know, Shaw. But it's kind of clever how they're figuring out all the clues, like the map and the light
It's like
had to
National
hit it.
Treasure.
Like he's found all the spots where the kaiju supposedly exist, and we know this because we've seen King of the Monsters and what happened there with that, where they were finally let out. But yeah, it was just cool to see that the young kids were figuring shit out as they were going along, and Shaw's got his own idea. He believes that Hiroshi's still alive too, so they're all searching for him. And so, like, when they do find him, it's like, ooh, what's the hell are you doing over there?
Yeah, when they found him in Afghanistan, right? That was like
Was it Afghanistan?
because remember they were in the middle of the desert and they're like, oh my god, it's dad, and that's when Big Man comes out of the sand.
Yes.
So, I have a question for you. Like, as a Godzilla fan and people who know Godzilla history, I said the same. I was like, why is Godzilla in the sand? Why isn't he like out in the ocean? So do we have do you know why he was in the sand or?
He's playing hide and seek.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Maybe you're right.
No,
Maybe because it was he was hiding out because it was so devastating in 2014.
Well, generally, this is where I was headed next. So obviously, as the plot progresses,
Okay.
we find out we see the aftermath of 2014, and back in 1954, where we see one of the best scenes in this whole thing. Another amazing flashback.
Exactly the way I thought they would.
If showing you what happens off screen during the film. The beginning of the first opening sequence of 2014, you see the atomic bomb going off and you see it head towards the shore. And you're just seeing that scene where you just, for a bit second, see Godzilla rising from the water. You actually saw the actual event take place in the show.
So good.
And he disappears. You just assume he's dead. And generally, as you can see throughout the show, if you get to that episode where where Godzilla appears out the water,
basically.
Yeah, but after that, when you think he's dead, there's that beautiful scene where Keiko and Shaw are sitting on the pier near that lake or just outside the ocean, and there's that Japanese or Chinese scientist who creates that device, which literally is
a kaiju precursor.
Orca.
It's basically a precursor to the Orca, and you see that happen, and you see Godzilla rise out of the water, and then he swims away, and they realise he's still alive. And to answer your question, I generally think because Godzilla is picking up these to us known signals, he's tracking them down, and he's like searching for whatever the signal is, and he's like, don't forget, he's a giant reptile. So when he's in the sand, as you see,
he's enjoying the heat.
He's enjoying it in his camouflage, and I believe just like he's a giant reptile, I believe he has like the ability to adapt to his surroundings, to hide in his surroundings. Like we've seen in the Showa era, like I never understood this. There's a scene in one of the films where I don't know which monster it is, there's a rival monster, and you just see a building behind, and all of a sudden Godzilla bursts out from inside the building. And you're like, well, how the hell did he get in? So for me, it's a throwback to the times where he was able to adapt, hide in his surroundings, while he's also resting.
Actually,
that's very clever.
That was actually 98.
Yeah,
98.
Godzilla came out of the building, yeah.
Yeah.
So I also wanted
there's a Showa era. I think it's actually Godzilla. It's the first Godzilla.
Well, it does happen in
it's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, one of the original. Where
Godzilla first shows up to confront Mechagodzilla. He comes to like a harbor building or something.
Right, but he comes from underneath it and through.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, and one little thing, I'm not going to go on a tangent, but like the Bikini Atoll thing, that was like real atomic testing, like, so that they take real history and they're like, well, we're really not testing atomic bombs, we're trying to kill Godzilla, kind of.
That's why I love
that's
that
what I love
little
about it.
Oppenheimer meme, because he's doing that monologue at the end. Is like, I think we destroyed the world, and of course it starts showing footage of Godzilla, and I think that's so amazing. They should have put that in Oppenheimer. I would have loved that crossover.
The Oppenheimer Godzilla crossover, the crossover we didn't know we needed.
You're right.
Okay, sorry, tangent.
No, I agree with you. I love the memes. I like how it's funny how Godzilla and Oppenheimer, like Godzilla -1 and Oppenheimer, came out around in the same year, because it's created this beautiful, synced thing that all fans, all fans are having fun with. But yes, so we're getting past Antarctica. They know the father's still alive. They're tracking these signals, these energy sources. Shaw is also tracking down these energy, but he has an alternative motive. They're trying to find their dad and get answers to why she has a half brother. She's like, well, who's this other life you've built for yourself in San Francisco? Kentaro and Kate. And then in the middle you have May, who has an alternative motive, just hiding from something. And as the plot progresses, all these mini secrets begin to be revealed, as well as the footage from the past. And obviously, the May reveal for me, I saw coming a mile off. Which, after the destruction of what happens in the desert, and they are captured by Monarch, they then discover that May is not really called May. She basically has been hiding in Japan because she destroyed, experiments and destroyed footage and years of research by this company she was working for, who then is revealed to be the origins of Apex Cybernetics, which anyone who knows Godzilla vs. Kong is the company that creates the antagonist Mechagodzilla.
Yep.
So
yeah, I started picking up that real soon when I started. She was like surprised. Like I said, this is connected to Simmons, and she's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, this is Apex."
So, but even when that reveal has happened, it's the whole how it comes about, like how Tim wants to go into the building to save her from the before it's called Apex, and he decides to set off a kaiju warning in the city, and there's that mass feeling of panic and dread, and there's people running around, and the woman who's behind it all kind of susses that it's just an excuse to get into the building. So that's one of the big reveals with Kate. Sorry, not Kate, May.
Yeah.
But then progress on where Shaw finally reveals his motives. He's destroying these, signals and these kind of giant openings to what he believes at the time is the Hollow Earth in retaliation for Keiko's death. He believes he's finishing her work and Bill's work, but in actual fact, he's doing more harm than good.
And it's kind of like building up the power. Like every time he destroys one, it seems like the others like get bigger, and
it triggers a kaiju
to emerge. So I found that plot, point fascinating. How it kind of, for what it reminded me of Pacific Rim. How they come out of a rift that is created by the precursor aliens, where you've got these naturally formed rifts or holes that take you deep into the Hollow Earth. But we're actually triggering them to now be opened. So what's your opinion of that kind of whole concept and idea of the Hollow Earth?
I like it. Obviously it's something that ties in the Godzilla versus Kong, which we found out. And, I thought about this the other night. I was watching, I think it was somebody just reacting to Godzilla and Kong on YouTube, but we think over the years about how in the Godzilla mythology and lore that you have Monster Island. Well, I think Hollow Earth is actually Monster Island in the Monsterverse. I think that's what they've done.
So this makes a lot of sense. So Hollow Earth is not just like a mythical thing, it's also a scientific thing, which kind of goes with how we are treating Godzilla in this new iteration. We're taking science and history and putting it all together. Again, like I was saying with the Bikini Atoll, Hollow Earth is something that exists, but it's something that's nearly impossible for us to even. I say nearly because you can't get there easily. We just are using theories, etc. So the idea of Skull Island actually being part of Hollow Earth is not that difficult to kind of like comprehend in this entire kaiju universe. Islands themselves have been formed in real life by science, by underground volcanoes. Like Hawaii is made entirely of volcanic, underwater volcanoes. So who's to say that Skull Island itself is part of Hollow Earth coming out from the bottom and creating an island that, yes, we typically in the real world, we can get there, we can see it, but it's not really of our world because it was formed from Hollow Earth up. And it is a gateway, but it's like not really an island that is like our islands per se. So maybe Hollow Earth has come through into Earth and created Skull Island. So these are the type of things that really like get me all like, it's all crazy.
Oh shit!
Oh no! He's got breaking news. What happened?
Apparently, we missed like an Easter egg in that last episode.
What? Share.
Well, I'll wait till we're getting there.
Okay.
I just I'm like, I don't remember that scene at all. Maybe you did, but I don't remember it.
So we've talked about the beginning, how it's after 2015. We've talked about the relationships of the younger cast, how they form this bond to find the father. They go on this hunt for him. The older cast, the cast from the 1950s, they're put together to form Monarch to find ways to understand and the monsters, aka Godzilla and all that. And throughout the timelines, we finally get to this junction point where basically they go back to where the very first episode began, over in where the mine is, where Keiko apparently lost her life. And Lee Shaw has went there to try and close another worm, like another portal to the Hollow Earth. And that's where things get even more interesting. This is where the past and the present collide, because obviously the events transpire where Lee Shaw tries to close another one of these portals with bombs,
and it's so dramatic.
And he suddenly brings up this huge friggin' kaiju, like centipede type thing. I honestly thought it was Batra for a minute. It had a Batra look to it.
Yeah.
And because of this kaiju, it then kicks the shit out of the cave. People die, and suddenly Kate, May, Lee Shaw are dragged into the Hollow Earth. Kentaro and Tim, who just barely survive, suddenly believe they're dead and go tracing their father, who they, have to break the news to. But the big reveal in this episode, when they survive the fall into the Hollow Earth after the presumed after the presumed Keiko had perished at the end of the first episode in the exact same location under one of these mines when they were investigating it, which starts the whole hunt and story really. They realise Keiko is still alive. And
I know!
The big plot twist is she hasn't fucking aged a day.
And she's like, oh yeah, I've been here 30 days. And I'm like, nope.
He's like, it's been like
50 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I was just wondering.
That was a really tense moment because at first, Shaw was very hesitant to show himself because he's like,
I think he didn't want to freak her out.
Well, he didn't, but he had to say things to make her understand. And then, of course,
Kitty,
she was still kind of shocked, but she didn't realize that so much time had passed.
But I think as a scientist and the stuff that she was studying, it scared her because she's like, oh my god, she's thinking about her son. She's like, Hiroshi, like for her, she felt like she missed out on all of Hiroshi's life as a mother. But then as a scientist, she's
But he
like,
gets to see her too.
well, don't.
This
But
is spoiler.
Mhm.
Everyone's watched
this
it
is all
by now.
spoiled,
So-
yeah. But I just
So-
think as a scientist, she
Yeah.
is.
I will say this real quick. Because of that particular time difference with how people age and whatnot down there, that certainly keeps Shaw alive for a while because he's not going to age very fast.
And on top of that, remember, we didn't even touch on that Shaw, because this is gonna.
He's
bring
he's
them
meant to
back.
be in his 80s, and obviously he's not, because
Right.
that a lot of people looked at the story before the final episode and all this was revealed. So just to recap, we'll quickly do this quick recap. The first episode, we'll say the aftermath of 2014.
Mhm.
The cast from the 1950s. Keiko, after investigating, is perished apparently in this accident in the power plant. Years later, it's revealed Shaw is trying to, in his own way, fix everything that went wrong, or really try to do justice for her death. The newer cast, the younger cast, they're basically just looking for answers and locating their father, and it all comes together, and it's all revealed that they're all connected, and
It's
they're
so
in the
crazy,
Hollow
it's so good.
Earth. And in the Hollow Earth, where they're located is not actually the Hollow Earth. It is a plane. It's so here's the surface. So we're here. And then this is the Hollow Earth. They're here in the middle. They're on
It's like an
some sort of...
intermediary kind of.
It's like a world within a world. Or a world between two worlds. And because it's called the Axis Mundi. And the Axis Mundi, because of how gravity works, and
If you ever want to go down a wormhole, just look up the Axis Mundi. There's so many theories and things about it. Sorry.
No, but I agree with what you're saying. So because they're stuck in the Axis Mundi, it's like in between the Hollow Earth and the Earth, the upper Earth. It acts as like this axis between the two, and it time doesn't work the same way. It slows down, and because of that, Keiko has basically not aged. And it also explains because how when Kurt Russell's character went on a research mission and he returned back up to the surface from what he
the
thought was the
80s.
Hollow, he would be in his 80s now, but it's kind of hauled his aging in his growth. So he's now where he would be in his 80s. I think Kurt Russell's in his probably early 70s now, or late 60s.
Well, remember when he remerged, it had been 20 years, right? Wasn't it something because it was the 60s
Right,
when he
'cause
went on
that's
his
how he
research
knew
mission.
that's how he knew that time, that if you were down there, say, a week, or whatever, I forget how long he was actually down there, but he was able to judge how much time would compare to when he got back. So with her being down there for a month means it's 50 years later on our time.
In our timeline, yes.
I think he was only down there for a week or two, which would make it about 20 years. So yeah.
And when he reemerged, remember, it was Hiroshi who went to see him in the hospital,
Right.
and he's like, Hiroshi, and he couldn't believe it because he was a little
And
boy.
Amiko was the nurse, which was the mother.
This, for me, though, I'm going to be totally honest, this makes total sense how Godzilla doesn't, he's thousands of years old, and the reason he's thousands of years old is because when he goes in these, goes through these holes or finds these gaps that take him from one end of the world to the other end of the world. So, for example, see he's in San Francisco and he wants to get to Japan. He enters the ocean and he swims down into one of these crevices that has an
Exactly,
opening into the Axis Mundi. He walks or he swims through the Axis Mundi, and the time he gets on the other side, 6 or 7, even 20 years could have passed. But to Godzilla, it could have been just a mere minutes or seconds or hours.
Mm-hmm.
But to him, it's actually just been that way to us. So when he went missing at the end of the first episode, or at the beginning of 2014, the film, when the bomb went off, he could have just went into the crevice, went down. It's been 20 years have passed or whatever to us, and then he re-emerges fully re-energized, and it's now 2014. He goes off to kill the Mutos in a matter of seconds.
Yep.
So it's great how they explain that, but it also explains how the Ewees on Skull Island haven't aged.
Yep.
Ooh, yes.
Yep.
Because, as you know, Jaya, who was the character from Godzilla vs. Kong, is originally from Skull Island. Now, she might, in that time, only been 8, 9 year old, but she could be 100 years old to us. But we don't see it because we don't know the mysteries of Skull Island. And obviously Skull Island during this time has now been obliterated by this huge storm, which, has happened. So there's a lot of questions that were answered, but it's opened the door to a lot more questions.
It's true. I mean,
I'm pretty sure the storm on Skull Island was a result of Ghidorah and all the mess that they made when they were all released.
Yeah, because Ghidorah obviously had control of the weather and created storms. But I know one thing that everybody has stated about the show compared to the comics is obviously the comic book used to fill in the gaps between the films. So you had Godzilla 2014, then you had Aftershock, the comic book, and then obviously other comics, and that was filling in the gaps. But apparently the events in the show have kind of debunked the storylines within the comic book. And there was a comic book called, I don't know if it's Kong Birth of Skull Island, the book that came out before Godzilla vs. Kong, where he fights a giant bat creature called Kamazots. And it's due to the events in the fight with Kamazot that Skull Island ended up destroyed. But of course, that's now, I don't know if that's still relevant, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen next. But that's just a lot of ins and outs.
This is so much stuff going on, like behind the scenes, and all these like theories, and I mean, honestly, because of the presence of these, I don't know, are they wormholes, portals, whatever we want to call them?
They're like portals, I think, like energized portals that take it to and from the Axis Mundi into the Hollow Earth and back up.
You could go any direction with this, because they're kind of an unexplained phenomenon, right? And we're seeing that it affects time, it affects aging, it affects, like, when we look at the one Kong film, I can't remember which one it was, but I mean, like, you got the giant bugs, you got the T-Rex, you've got like everything going on. That
was the 2005 remake by Peter Jackson.
Yep.
So you think about stuff like that, and yes, we're talking about like an area frozen where these, because like there is prehistoric evidence of fossils of giant bugs and the T-Rex and all of these things where Skull Island is still there, just kind of frozen in time. And it makes a lot of sense where you're saying, like, maybe as Skull Island is part of Hollow Earth and the Axis Mundi, maybe these timelines are not exactly, it's not time is not linear, it's circular, and etc., or whatever they like to say. But it really does prove that Skull Island is not of this, I don't want to say of this earth, but of this, timeline. It's part of a bigger thing that we're seeing as it evolves from all these different movies and from the TV show.
I think it was stated that Skull Island is the Hollow Earth and probably the Axis Mundi that is risen through into the surface. So it's like there's the axis mundi of the hole, and it's suddenly raised up and created like a weight, like a way into the Hollow Earth, because obviously you've got all that different life on Hollow Earth. And don't forget, another big question is, if you looked at Skull Island the movie, it had that giant vortex storm constantly circling it, and you had to break through in the helicopters. So a lot of people are like, well, how no wonder the island's never been discovered till now, because it's had
even if
this,
you're trying to look at it through,
it's had this vortex
space,
kind of storm constantly circling it, and that might be the ramifications of being connected to the Axis Mundi. That's forcing this energy out, that's creating a constant storm around the island. So
super interesting. And it touches my heart, because you're hitting things that are like kind of real. Is this like a weather phenomenon? Maybe we couldn't find Skull Island because we can't see it from satellite photos because of all the weather phenomenon going on, et cetera, et cetera. Or is this really some kind of secret thing that I love unsolved mysteries. I love all the, like, you see the stuff.
Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, the Bermuda Triangle, aliens, all the crazy, because I'm a firm believer in science, and I love, not to go back to Oppenheimer because we just watched it, but all these theories that all these scientists had come up with, and then they realized, yeah, this is real and we can do this. Scientists are doing that now. Like, I am not a physicist. I am not smart enough to come up with these equations and be like, yeah, this is 100% possible. So when they're telling us these things are possible, and we're seeing, like, this is just a show, but they're kind of showing, like, things are possible that we have no comprehension of. Just think 100 years ago, the kind of stuff that we now have, that scientists, physicists, mathematicians are like, oh, this is 100% possible, and 100 years ago people are like, it's definitely not possible.
These movies and the Monsterverse, and even -1, or even Shin Godzilla, if you're somebody that really likes that film, like, these more mature storylines are basically Godzilla for adults. So even though we loved them as kids, the storylines are getting more developed, more thought put into it. As you said, they're trying to make a correlation between real life. Like, it's almost like a what if. Like, and they start with 2014. It's like the Monarch, the Bikini Hotel, the atomic bomb blast. Like, when they started showing those clips at the beginning, you and I were like, "This is fucking cool."
This
I really dig how they tied that in. And so, we always love all the other stuff in the Godzilla catalog, but as you get older, you want something that's a little bit more thought-provoking. And so that's one reason
that's what this show did.
Yeah, and -1 just took it like another level, because even though I don't know what they're going to do series-wise with that, if they do it at all, but
look, okay, let's back up for a second. Look at how the series left everything open-ended. It was like a beautiful ending, but you could end it or you could go forward, right? Like, it could go. I mean, I honestly want more. I will always say, give me more Godzilla, but we could do more.
let's before we talk about that, let's go back.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm jumping.
We've revealed happened. Keiko's still alive. She hasn't aged. Shaw has aged. It's thanks to him that, because he did find a way to get out of the Hollow Earth. And they're just, like, obviously, May's there, Kate's there, and she's shocked that her grandmother's there. And, there's this connection with family. But that's all happening down below. But above, Kentaro and Tim and the dad, Hiroshi, they kind of figure out, well, Tim does, that this signal, and it's like a pulse. And originally they don't know where it's coming from, and maybe that is right from the start. That's what Hiroshi was picking up all this time, this signal from his mother.
That's true.
because he was picking up this signal, he tracked all these openings, and he was following the signal from one end to the other.
I did not even pick that up. That's true. He's like, maybe it is my mom.
Or I don't think he felt that. I just think he was picking up this signal, and he'd find out.
I think Tim thought maybe it might be her and tried to convince his boss that was coming from her, but she wasn't listening. So he kind of like said, "All right, screw you." You know?
There is one question I have that when it comes to Hiroshi's story that didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Is when he first meet Hiroshi as an adult, and obviously it's after Lee Shaw comes back up from the hollow. He's totally against Monarch. He's like, you know, me parents are dead. You're gonna get shipped to this facility. And you know, Lee Shaw's trying to convince him to find his, you know, to continue the research. This is your family legacy, and he's totally against it. And that's in the past. Then the next thing you know, you have that one of my favourite scenes is where you see basically Lee Shaw, the younger, sitting in this care home. Or this veteran facility, and then it zooms in, he's watching telly with these younger veterans. Then someone walks past, and it's the Kurt Russell version with the older veteran, and they've got their eyes on the telly, and it's that clip that Joe Brody's wife, not Joe Brody, the son, his wife, when she's looking at when the son's looking at the telly in 24, and she goes, "Look, dinosaur," and she looks at the telly, and you get that news clip of Godzilla fighting the Muto. It's the very same clip that you see in 2014 that appears on his telly, and that's when he stops taking his drugs, these tablets that are obviously there to sedate him or have some sort of influence on him.
Right.
So that's all going on, but then the next thing you know, we're bang in the future. And then also Hiroshi's all about, you know, Monarch is all invested. And for me, it never made sense. The only thing I can think of is that he never believed any of it until the events of 2014 and he seen Godzilla for himself face to face. Because
I don't know if that's 100% when he started, because remember when they went back to San Francisco and they found his this is in the G-Day aftermath. They found his office, and it had all of
the research.
So I think maybe next season we're going to get a gap between when Lee reemerged and then when Hiroshi finally opened his eyes and said something is amiss, because you know, if he was only doing this after 2014, there wouldn't be all this research, and he wouldn't have like a secret vault, and he wouldn't. So there's got to be a time between.
He had a life before, like he was already married to Emiko when 2014 happened.
And he was
married clearly already disappearing.
He was married to Kate's mother too.
San
Francisco.
I just found it weird how he just went from, I don't want to know, I don't care, very dismissive of Lee Shaw, to next thing he's like the ultimate monster hunter.
Well, that you got to remember that's 1980.
Well, the other thing is
2016 is when everything happened, so that's like a big
here's the
time
other thing,
gap.
because
something could have happened in there, and we might get it second season.
I think Hiroshi in some way blamed Shaw for his mother's death, because he was the one that was there, was trying to catch her before she fell.
That's a good point.
And so, because Shaw was carrying that guilt clearly, and so like. I think Hiroshi indirectly, you might be right. He might have like disregarded Monarch, because he said to himself, "I'm going to find my mom on my own. I'm smart enough. I can do it. I got the notes. I'm going to go find her myself." That's why he just disappeared from everybody. But then, of course, by the end of it, and I thought I didn't see this. I did. When Kiko and everybody comes back up from the bottom, when Shaw gets left behind.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you haven't seen it, it's your fault. Hiroshi's there, but he's working with Apex now, so he's now part of a bigger. They're funding him to do more research. So clearly, he's all in. And now that his mom's back, I'm sure that's going to change everything entirely. Like now he's probably going to go all in.
And I think honestly, Kevin, I swear, I think we don't see it. This is another off-screen thing that we might get second season, where this is like 1980 when Lee reemerges and Hiroshi is grown up, and that's when they send Lee to the, you know, place where they just want people to go away. I think Hiroshi, whatever Lee said to Hiroshi, started Hiroshi thinking. So then Hiroshi starts like mulling over all these things that Lee had said, and he keeps up with Lee because
Yeah.
remember they found
There's one other
documents.
thing though. There's one other thing I've just realised. It just pinged in my head.
Okay, go.
At the very first beginning of the first episode, you see Bill Randa's how he's folded into the ocean. So maybe you're right that Hiroshi's not interested, but it's taken over in his mind, and then suddenly someone delivers him his dad's old briefcase with all the Monarch
Right.
information.
Because
And
he
when he
had it.
sees all the stuff, he'll be like, oh shit, everything Lee said to me is true. But instead of going back and thanking Lee, he just leaves him to rot in this facility and decides to go
Right.
out on his own because he blames Shaw, like you said, for the death of his father and the death of his mother. But then he can't let it go because he wants to solve the mystery of it
He
on
wants
his
to know
own.
what happened.
Which is where everything kicks off for his journey within the story. So they're great
remember,
points that you've made, and it all could be explained in a second season if they do a second season.
Oh, I hope they do a second season. I just remembered, like, this is such a small detail, but when the kids were going through Hiroshi's office and they found that document, that's how they found Lee in the rest home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Hiroshi was keeping tabs on Lee to a point, maybe visiting here and there and trying to pick his brain. And I also, when we saw that Lee's,
I don't think he was visiting because.
but he had the invoice.
Yeah, but
Well,
Lee, like, when
don't
Lee
forget,
when
though-
the kids came to Lee, he was like, I haven't seen Hiroshi in a long time, but I believe he's alive. He just says he believed he's alive. Didn't really know.
Okay.
And don't forget though, I think Hiroshi, he used Monarch, because don't forget, he would have known where
That's a
Lee
good
was.
point.
He knew he was where he was. He could keep on tabs on him because it's where Monarch had placed him, or the government. And Monarch and the government had a relationship. Hiroshi was then,
Bingo.
you know, let go by Monarch because he was tampering with satellites. So
Yeah.
because of all of this,
Yes.
he probably, even though he probably wasn't bothered with Shaw, it's probably due to the fact that because he was in Monarch and had a connection with the government, he could just check on him anytime he wanted.
Yes.
But he used the satellites to look at pinpoint certain places where these signals of the hollow earth are coming from.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's why he was let go by Monarch. And then all the dots come together that he was searching for something. And like you say, it could have been the signal that his mother, Keiko, was sending up that made him find these other signals for the different, entrant points to the hollow earth. And then we get to the very end, we're getting there, we're getting close. So when all this has been
this is
sorted
what I'm
out,
saying. Like, I love It's a Mystery.
and all this amazing, complicated or intertwining plot comes together, the 2015 group, the 1950s group kind of collide, and there's a connection there. And
Yes.
a mixture of them are trapped within the surface of the hollow earth and the Axis Mundi. They need to get out. Shaw, he's kind of revealed everything he's done is he's trying to make up for the mistakes he made with Keiko and Bill and not constantly being there. Not that he didn't believe them, but in his mind he felt like, I've got me orders, and he wants to be there for them, but he's trying to watch his career, but then he's also fallen for Keiko.
Yes.
So it's, in a way, it's a tragic love story that
It really is.
we need to go back to that episode when we first see the Iron Dragon. This little shit. And then suddenly Lee goes, I remember how I got back up from the Axis Mundi up to the surface world. And he goes to Keiko, can you show me where you got this device from, where you were sending the signal up? and there's still one of them pods that literally is only a couple of weeks old. It's 30 odd years old, but it's only a couple of weeks old down there, and the battery's still alive. So what did they say to do? And you have to remember, everybody, throughout this plot, Godzilla has been following this signal himself. So Hiroshi's been following this signal, and so's Godzilla, because it's triggering for some reason. And it's triggering for a reason because he's hunting something. And this is where the fun, and this is the best part of this episode, the whole show. And it is where Lee Shaw and the group decide they're going to trigger this device that the scientist, the precursor to the Orca, to basically lure a Titan that's going to then manifest them to be able to, you know, as it leaves to go through one of this portal up to the surface, they're going to follow it through and end up back up the world. But unknown to them, there's already something down there, and it happens to be a much older, much fully formed, much bigger ion dragon. The little shit is back.
The little shit's a big baby now. He's a big boy.
And this is where the fun begins. So, Anubis, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah,
What?
take it from here.
You take it and you explain this fantastic...
All right, well, so basically, the pod can hold like no more than 4, and I think that's all they got there between the 4 of them. But
Yeah, because remember when Lee came down, he was the
like
only
3 other people,
survivor.
right? And they didn't really dove into that, but anyway, they're getting ready to leave, and the dragon trips the cable that they need to connect or something. So Lee gets out to go reattach it, and as he's trying to do that, you know, because he's got to dodge the dragon and everything, but
It's
all of a
so
sudden
dramatic.
that portal opens up, and you know who shows up, and he's ready to kick some ass. Godzilla's there, and there's going to be this battle and everything, but because there's such fighting going on, the pods kind of get dragged around. So eventually Lee's like, I'm going to close it up, seal it up, and then I'm going to stay behind so they can get up there. And they leave, they're ported back up, and he's left behind, which, you know, we know that the timelines are different.
Fine.
Yeah, it's like he's on pause, you know, basically, depending on the next time they get down there.
It's like one thing I found that scene very poetic. So
Yes.
how I took this scene is they need to trigger the pod to lure a Titan that's going to open a hole that they'll follow through. And what I got from it, they had triggered it, and there's something heading towards them from the other side, which we don't know at that point is going to be Godzilla. But at the same time, the Ion Dragon's already there in the Hollow Earth, in the Axis. It's probably been there all this time, because I'm sure, well, obviously the Ion Dragon, for those that don't know, another spoiler, when Lee went on the research mission down into what he thought was the Hollow Earth, it was attacked, and it was attacked by the Ion Dragon that was lured up to them. So obviously when they all went crashing down, the Ion Dragon got through and was, I believe, was trapped where they were in the Hollow Earth in the Axis Mundi, because I don't believe it can escape. I believe, in my opinion, and my theory was, they opened a portal, it sensed it, it went through it, but when it landed in the Axis Mundi, it got itself trapped. And so the only way it can get out is to follow them through, or to, you know, have a big enough portal it can fly through. So when they're luring this other Titan, which the big reveal is, it's Godzilla. And it's that fucking scene where he just walks through, and he's Lord, it's like a bouncer standing at outside of a fucking, like outside of like a nightclub door. He's like, what the fuck do you want?
You're not coming up here.
Come and get us. And then the sneaky little shit, well, this is why I call it the little shit, because it attacks him from behind. There's a beautiful fight sequence. Yes, it's only maybe a minute long, but for me, for a television show, the effects are fantastic, and it was well crafted.
Agreed.
Yeah, one thing Rob mentioned in his review was that, one reason why we're not going to get a lot of monster action is because the cost of CGI. So movies, you get these big budgets, but this show probably doesn't have near the budget that those did. So they have to kind of
They have to use their budget wisely and give you the
relegate how much
best.
CGI they can
Yes.
have. And so your monster action is going to be kind of low, but as Kevin pointed out, it's going to be top notch. But because the budget's not as big as the movies, they have a limited range of what they can do with the CGI. So I
Well,
thought
They used
they
it
did a
well,
very
though.
good job with it.
They have used
Well-
all of the fighting and CGI very well.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest, I thought for a television show, I thought some of the CGI, because of it's the colours they used, it was the greys, it was the blues, it was the greens, and it was the surroundings of the rock faces. It just I think it really fully showcased Godzilla in the
Agreed.
best
And-
light.
Did you
Like,
feel too, like with
look-
the colors and everything, how so I noticed this throughout the entire series where you could see the theme of the actual, like, whatever's happening in the episode based on the colors. And when they were kind of going back in time, they did kind of use those sepia tones a little bit, not sepia where it's like 100% sepia, but it was more muted. You're getting that old-timey feeling. And then when they're kind of like moving forward, it was more I don't want to say brighter, but different tones that made it look more modern. And I really like that they did that, because as Anubis said, it does take a little bit of thought, like, okay, who are these people versus who are these people? And then when they kind of brought everybody together in the last episode, in the last few scenes, it was all like I'm trying to think the right, like, I want to say combined, but they're using a different tone on the colors when they're in the Axis Mundi all together.
Yeah.
It's like an ethereal place, so you get that kind of like hazy look to it. And you bring everyone together and then you kind of resurface. It's now present time, and it's like very flat coloring.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed that as well too. Like it's kind of like very cohesive now. The past is the past, and the past has that like sepia haze. The future is the future, and it's a more brighter, like modern haze. They're in the Axis Mundi. It's that very like you kind of get like cloudy look to it, and then they surface, and then once they surface and they're talking about being part of Apex and blah blah blah, and they're reuniting, the colors are very flat, like it's boom. These are like true
very metallic,
colors.
very dark.
Yes.
So the great thing is, if you look at, like, obviously we've mentioned the CGI, and I said right at the beginning of this that the CGI I'd had no problem with, because I knew they would do a good job. Now obviously we're now in 2023 when this was made, or 22 into 23. Godzilla 2014 came out in 2014, but obviously it was made in 2013, the year before. You can actually see the leaps and bounds in the technology and in the CGI. Now, the CGI in 2014 is good, but I felt like the CGI in this, and the tones and the textures of Godzilla were better, because technology's advanced slightly. And I thought it just made excellent viewing for that particular scene. The whole show, any time a kaiju was on screen, was a joy to witness. I honestly thought the only dodgy bit of CGI I thought was with the fight at the beginning with the mother Longlegs and the crab creature. I think
they kind of pulled that. They wanted it to look like the movie. I think they were trying to like make it feel like you are still part of the movie, Skull Island, and kind of keep that feeling there too.
In the CGI could have been on the level of the stuff from 2017 Skull Island, so it just felt like you could walk from that film straight into that sequence.
Now, do you feel like I did that they did take these tones in the color and the different feelings, and they did that purposely, or do you think it was just like me looking too closely at it because I really felt like the past looked different than the future. I literally could see it on screen.
I think what they did is they used modern technology, but they changed the lens on the camera. So the lens had a different tint to it in the past than it did the
Like
present.
when they were at the ball, when they were dancing and stuff, it felt like it was in the 50s, right?
Yes.
Like you kind of felt that nostalgic kind of take on it.
So, and all it can take is a different, lighting or a different, tweaking the lens of the camera and changing the tone on the camera lens to give it that kind of retro feel.
To the attire too, so the attire match. They did a good job.
Yeah, the costuming was amazing.
Definitely. So here we are. We've had this epic battle with these amazing. It's probably less than a minute long, but it sets the tone. It was the ultimate payoff for me.
Yes.
For the show.
I was not expecting the G-Man to come. I thought like they were just going to go and everything was going to be okay.
Once the dragon was there, I was like, oh, he's coming.
Yeah. For me personally, I thought the big payoff was the scene in the desert when he rose up from the floor. I thought, well, that's the biggest scene.
That's what I thought too. I was like, Godzilla. This is the G reveal.
See, I'll tell you, for me, and this is going to sound so weird, the whole payoff for the series for me is the first meeting between Kiko and Lee, and then when Kiko meets her son. Like, those are like the best thing because there's.
I know.
If you're paying attention to the storyline, there's so much trauma and emotion there that these people are in pain because they think that, one case. Kate thinks her dad was just a cheating asshole, didn't care about them, when in reality he did, and he was just trying to fix and find his mother because he had his own past pain. Lee Shaw, of course, felt guilty.
It's that beautiful moment as well when she sees her older son, and she looks at him and she goes, "You've grown," and she puts his head in her, and it's like a real mother-son moment.
Oh, I cried.
But before we go on, we'll just end this and then we'll have a bit more conversation on it, about. So after they rise up, they use this device. Lee, by the way, I think it was mentioned, but I mentioned it again. His story arc is he wanted to redeem himself because he felt he had failed Keiko and Bill in, supporting them in the whole journey with Monarch, because I think he doubted a lot of it, and he was more worried about the ramifications to his career. And when I agree. And when she lost her life, he now was full of guilt, thinking, I should have been more involved. I should have helped them more. I should have been more there for them, instead of questioning everything they were doing. So his ultimate thing to repay him was when they were trying to go and use the portal as him, when it's lifted off the ground and he's hanging on for dear life, he decides to let himself go because he realises, I lost Keiko once. I'm not going to let her be lost again, so I'm the one that's going to sacrifice myself this time. So he lets go, and he's stuck in the, he's either dead or he's stuck in the Axis Mundi. And as you know, there's another film coming out in less than a month. Who's to say he's with the Iwi tribe in the Axis Mundi? Because if you look at some of the clips in the trailer, in the Axis Mundi, it's the light and it's the shade, and it's like crystallized light and colours. In the trailer, there's a lot of light and very similar. And if you've seen, did you just watch the second trailer?
No, I don't want to watch any trailers.
I did. That's the one I think I reacted to.
No, I don't want to watch any trailers.
I didn't react to it, I just watched it.
Because I want to go in without too many spoilers. And small tangent, I think that's why I didn't enjoy King of the Monsters as much as I did, because I watched way too many trailers. So anytime something comes out now, even with -1, I watched.
You did watch the first one, man.
Just for so with -1 too. I was we watched the teaser trailer. That's it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know anymore. I'm not watching 100 trailers because I felt like King of the Monsters had a new trailer every other day.
They did,
and I think watching too many trailers ruined the movie for me.
Absolutely. But we'll quickly get to the end of this. So that's my part of what I believe Lee Shaw's journey was. It was a redemption arc. And it was also his way. after he came back from the Axis Mundi and Keiko was gone, and he had seen, the pain that Hiroshi was going through, he set about trying to, he wanted to make it up with him as well. And I think it's the whole point is, I'm going to reunite you with your mother. And I'm going to show
because he knew
you.
that she had family, and Kate, the granddaughter, Hiroshi. He didn't really have anybody to worry about. So he was like, "I'm just going to stay behind this time. You're going to go back home."
And we already talked about how May had this past. She worked for this company that was torturing animals, doing this very inhuman research, this technology company, which at the end of that episode was revealed to be the beginning of Apex. And obviously when Tim and Kentaro, basically, they kind of realise, and the father, that there is still a signal there, and that they still believe that there is hope. That's the last you see of them at the end of the episode, and then boom, we get right at the end, after this huge sacrifice from Lee Shaw, the amazing battle between Godzilla and the Iron Dragon. Suddenly, boom, the pod lands on. It felt like a scene out of Back to the Future when the DeLorean comes flying from the future into wherever. It felt like that. It suddenly lands on this, what I thought was an airfield, which I think it is, with bunkers and
it looked like it had like a big hangar and stuff like that.
And the next thing you know, there's Kate, there's Hiroko, there's Tim, then May. May is reunited with them. There's the beautiful, like you mentioned, that amazing mother-son scene. And then all of a sudden, the bitch from Apex rocks on the screen. And then that suddenly, boom, that's when I knew what was about to happen next. You just... Well, we knew it. Well, I kind of knew because I seen a palm tree wiggling in the background.
Kong.
And then all of a sudden...
Oh, yeah, that's where they are. You're right.
Then, boom. There's suddenly, just like in that scene where Tim decides to set off a kaiju warning that distracts everyone so they can rescue Mia from Apex, the same warning goes off. They're all getting like, come on, you need to get inside, it's not safe out yet, you've got to get inside. They're heading towards this bunker, and then as they turns the camera, you see on side of the building, Apex Skull Island facility.
Yup.
And then the camera zooms out and heads towards like the palm trees, and who pops up but Kong, giving his mighty roar and the pump of the chest. End scene, end season 1, ends with
Very
the cliffhanger.
poetic.
So what's your opinion of how the show ended?
I like it.
I liked it too.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And again, like we said, it's enough to be an ending, but it's also enough to give you another season, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you treat the series like, even if you're someone who just, again, you want all the monster action, but if you want to treat the series as filler to the movies, then it's going to work out well, because that's what it's designed for. So people just have to kind of lower their expectations about what they're trying to get out of this, because movies, you only have at best a couple hours to get in your entire story and all the monsters that you want. So that's kind of like what they do. I mean, 214 didn't have like a whole lot of monster fighting, but it was setting everything else up. So King of the Monsters and Godzilla and Kong, they got exactly what they wanted. Maybe not so much with King of the Monsters, but Godzilla and Kong was a lot of fighting, so that's what they wanted. But now you get but the people like me were like, well, the characters are stupid. They have no plot, no great story. Well, that's what Monarch's for. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing Millie Bobby Brown in season 2 at some point. Like, I won't be surprised at all. And,
all because it's set before 2019, Dr. Zarazawa.
Right. So, we don't know who's all yet to come yet, because we might still get, as you just pointed out, Sarazawa might show up before his death.
Even the character of Dr. Vivian Graham, who was who was part of Monarch. I think, to be honest, I think there's more likely he showing up than Dr. Zarazawa. But I thoroughly enjoyed this show, and the thing I loved about it is that it's a bit like Marvel. You can either watch the Marvel timelines through the movies and just have the films and not look at the in-betweens.
That's what I was going to bring up earlier. Is like,
yes,
I've watched a little bit of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of those things, and it's much different than the movies. But if you were to watch the entire thing, it's going to have little things in there that point to what's going on in the movies. And so
it's like the side.
Now Monarch's more closely related, because Marvel's timeline's like all over the place. But
what I
there's a lot
like,
more going on there with that than the Monsterverse. But that's okay. Like, I like that Monarch keeps it pretty simple. Just it gives us the backstories, all the character development that we need, and tells us the story. Like,
and even though at the beginning it's complicated to follow the timeline from 1950s to 2014 or 15, they wrap it up in such a way that by season end it all comes off beautifully, and it is quite a strong story and plot that really links together well and isn't too complicated in the end to follow. And what I was going to say is this: Legendary and Warner Brothers have got lots of things that they can look into, and they've had lots of things that they've looked at outside where they can see the positives, the negatives, the mistakes, and the successes of other franchises. So you've mentioned there Marvel. So prior to the MCU having Disney Plus, where Disney Plus have to put out content and they're hammering what they can. And I think that's why everything's getting rushed and everything is not as par as the movies of the first 10 years, is because they need to get subscribers, they need to keep subscriber count up. The thing with Monarch and Warner Brothers and Legend, they don't have that pressure, because I don't, as much as it's Apple Plus is, I have looked at some of the shows on there, I don't think it's as stressed or as desperate to keep subscribers the way Marvel and Disney are. And they
don't have to worry about oversaturating either, because the Monsterverse doesn't have like 20 different films to worry about. They've only got like 4 right now. So they're keeping it simple,
Yeah. And where Marvel have to now, between every movie, we have to have a series to explain what's going on before the next movie. The Monsterverse doesn't. Let's face it, one season between 2014 and I think this is set before 2017, so it's before either Skull Island or after it, and it's leading into King of the Monsters. One season's explain the ins and outs of what's happened in between 2 films.
Well, my dream right now is like, this would be the coolest thing. So you've got this season. So before we get to 2019 King of the Monsters, so you still need at least one more season to kind of bridge that gap before, with Dr. Russell and the Orca and how they actually perfected it and everything. And then you have 2019. Well,
I think we should watch King of the Monsters today.
You have season 3 of Monarch, which would then connect King of the Monsters with Godzilla and Kong. Then season 4 would connect Kong, of course, with Empire. Then, what I'd love to see is season 5 of Monarch. This is just dreaming. Season 5 would then connect us to the next film, which would then feature Apex coming up with a new villain. His name, they need permission. His name is Gigan. And that would be fucking sweet. Because cybernetics by that point, dude, would be fucking like mastered, right? Because if you're thinking of how much they've come away with, how they were able to get down to the Hollow Earth and Godzilla and Kong, that's like, and even the traveling between wherever Millie Brown's character and the rest of them to Hong Kong was very fast. So they were already way ahead technology wise. So just think of what they can do another 20 years down the road.
Yeah, I think, well, like I say, we've talked about this season. I loved it.
I do too.
Before we'll, like, the next part of this, and we'll talk about it a little bit, is what we believe is going to happen beyond the show. We have already touched, this is what you would like to happen. Before we finish off and talk a little bit more about that, what would you rate the first season of Monarch?
Out of 10?
Out
That's
of 10.
That's usually my rating, yeah. First season, I'd give it a solid 8.
I would go 9, actually. Like
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't think it's perfect, but there's so many perfect moments that.
Well, I think it was just a bit clumsy. There were some things they could have left out of it. Like, to be honest, like, they tried to do the whole, like, semi-woke thing in there, but it's like...
Oh, you're talking about the relationships?
Yeah, but, like, the reality is, like, you put it in there, but really in the end, they didn't even go back to it. It didn't even really matter. So
That's
it's like,
true.
why
They
even
really
bring
didn't
it
go
up?
back
Like,
to
it was a pointless thing to even bring anything up.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing we never really talked about, was the different interconnecting relationship, and I didn't really want to bring that up because
it doesn't have anything to do with the story. Yeah.
Yeah, it is character. It is part of their character development, but it doesn't really, you know, the whole story for me was the Shaw, Keiko, Hiroshi, in the connection of the two kids reconnecting with the father and becoming a solid family.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, for me, being an age, it was a little bit clumsy, but I think they're going to perfect it better in season 2 if they get there.
So are you thinking that they just threw that in there just for...
Yeah, it's just, you know,
because
they have to. I don't know if they don't have to, but the thing is, most studios now are just trying to be more inclusive. They're trying to draw wider audiences. Well, I get it. For me personally, if you're going to bring that up, like with her, they tried to tease Kate and May too a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
So if you're
they were
going to
holding
do that,
hands a lot. They were cuddling a lot. So for those that don't know, why I didn't want to bring, because I said that for me the main story is Shaw, Lee Shaw, Keiko, their redemption stories. Him getting his mother back and the connection of the two kids becoming a solid family. But there is a subplot that was teased that May, obviously her story was she was trying to redeem herself and in hiding after, you know, discovering and exposing Apex, you know, illegal experiments. That was her story arc. But the in-between story arc is that Kentaro has feelings for me, and they were kind of on the path of potentially going out. Kate, she had a previous relationship with another female, you know, she cheated on her, things didn't go right, and then there was the events at 2014 that created to have PTSD over it all. And then throughout it all, there's like these glimmers that Kate and me are beginning to bond, but more not just as friends. There's like a hidden chemistry there, and obviously, if that does happen, which I'm assuming it is going to happen in a potential season 2, it means their story arc for them 3 characters is going to be a love triangle.
And that's fine. Like, and that's my point. It's like, if you're gonna do it, great. Just dive in and do it. Like, don't do like a little morsel just to pander to them. Like, if you're gonna go that route, just go.
And do it in an authentic way and make it look generally really not forced.
Exactly.
Like,
and that's my point. Like, just
they've kind of teased it, like you say. They've teased it. They've kind of laid the breadcrumbs, you know, the odd little things like the cuddling in the holding hand. Even when they were going through the portal to come back up to the city, they were holding hands, Kate and me.
Yeah, so I just think season 1 was like them just kind of feeling their way around. That's fine, because you can build off of that. And so I hope season 2, if they do it, which I really hope, they'll just have all their things like, okay, this worked, let's do this.
So that is season 1 of Monarch.
What did you rate it?
Yeah, what is your rating?
Oh, I never got to my rating. So my rating is going to be 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
So she gave it higher.
Yeah, so the reason I did 7 out of 10 is because of all the positives of what I mentioned, but my negative is there is part of the story that I felt that could have been fleshed out better. Like, they talked about Kate's PTSD, and I think that, because for me, I did grow to like Kate by the end, but I found her very unlikable, and I think what would have made us like her more if they fleshed out some of the other character stories. Like I said, the main story for me was the Lee Shaw journey, the Keiko journey, the Hiroshi journey. Even though you don't see him much, it's about him tracking and looking for his mother. But I think they wasted Kentaro. I didn't think he had a real. He was just there. He was just there. May's story pretty much got wrapped up after the reveal of Monarch, and she could be free again. And then Kate's story for me just didn't flesh out, and that was what I found frustrating. They're kind of setting the tone in one of the filler episodes, I said, where they were trying to find the father's office.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the flashbacks, and you're getting the reason she's feeling the way she is. And yes, it did explore it, but I thought it was going to be a continuing theme throughout. But it was suddenly forgotten about. But then, in a way, I'm glad it was, because the main focus after that was all about Shaw, Keiko, and obviously Hiroshi. But them parts kind of annoyed us. But apart from that, it was a solid effort by Legendary, Apple, and Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
But the final thing we'll talk about for a couple of minutes is, you've already talked about it. You've talked about it. Where do you see beyond the show we're headed next? We're already getting a new Empire. So where would you like to see, personally, yourselves, the Monsterverse go next?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Well, it depends on what they're going to do. So, like I said, if they can get the kind of success that they want out of this, if Kaiju fans support this show, regardless if you really like season 1 or not, if you support it and you want more, if it can go, like most seasons of any kind of show will go between 5 and 7 seasons. So if they can find a way to like get this thing up to around 4 or 5 seasons, then you can at least expect one more film after Empire. Now, if they can't, like if they're just not seeing the driving force behind it, then they may have to bypass after this season. They may have to just skip to, like, I don't know, between Godzilla and Kong to Empire. They may have to kind of start working in that, because if they feel like they can't keep it going beyond that, they're just going to have to skip time. Now, that would frustrate me because I'm invested in season 1, so I kind of want to see how this shit plays out. And they may use same characters, just older versions of them. I don't know, but then you're kind of leaving Shaw back in Hollow Earth, even though he may not age all that fast.
But do you not think that could be a good thing, especially when it comes to the Keiko character? Because if she at some point ends back down the Hollow Earth, and she's around the same age as Shaw is now, and he hasn't aged, they could actually be together.
That's actually a nice twist.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it would be a beautiful love story.
Yeah. Because he did have a thing for her, that's for sure.
So you would like potentially them to do 3 to 4 more seasons?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all about luxury at this point. If they have the luxury to do it, then just go ahead and build upon it. Like I think, in my opinion, I think there's enough Kaiju fans that will be interested in at least 4 more seasons. Like I just think it can. Like, you know, I can't promise you that because it's hard to keep Kaiju Godzilla fans happy.
It's hard enough to keep regular TV shows on for 4 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, as popular as Stranger Things was, their 5th season come out's going to be their last. So it's tough to go that 7-season distance. It's why it's amazing that Supernatural went for like 22
20 seasons.
So, in my opinion, like just in a perfect world, I would love to have all the filler guests for each movie. I just would like to have that. And so
that's the beauty about a TV show. Like, you know, you have a movie and you've got 2 hours to tell a story, but then you have a TV show that you get 10 episodes, so that's 10 hours worth of extra like content that you can fill in the gaps to the stories that you know, again, the beauty about a movie is it's partially in your head and it's partially on the screen. So you're watching a movie, but you also kind of tell stories in your own head about what the characters have gone through before they get to this movie. The TV show itself will give you kind of like that extra little, it's like a perk, you know, you fall in love with these characters and you fall in love with Godzilla and you fall in love with the entire kaiju universe, but then you have these extra little side quests that kind of give you a little bit more and just enough to kind of say, okay, this is how we're going from here to there. Anyway, I just hope they keep up with it.
Did he freeze?
Oh no. Are you frozen?
Yeah, it froze a little bit there, but never mind. Hello? Hello? Yeah, it froze a little bit there. Luckily it happened near the end and not the whole fucking stream like it did the last time.
Oh, we're all sorry.
But going back, so where would you like to see it go, Keiko? Neko?
I just want to, I like how they've explored the in-between of what happened on the big screen and what is the backstory. So the backstory that they've given me of these other characters that are not part of like the big screen Monsterverse, I've really grown attached to. And I love your idea of, okay, well, if time doesn't exist, we can jump around. We can go way into the future and we can see Keiko go back with Shaw. And, you know, Keiko's been down there now 50 years. Even if Shaw's down there 50 years, he's not going to age at all. And the two of them...
Well, he can't be down. 50 years is a long time down there, but...
But that's basically how long Keiko was down there.
She was down there for 30 days.
Okay, 50 years up here time.
Right.
So Keiko will age 50 years and she'll be in her 70s at that point.
If he's down there.
If he's down there for 30 days in, you know, Exus Mundi time, and they can get together and share their life down in the Exus Mundi, or maybe they can get back to Shaw and bring him back up.
I have to put this on record here. Legendary, if you guys watch this feed and you steal our ideas, we get paid for it. Okay?
We will find you.
We will copyright that shit. That storyline belongs to us.
I would love, like, this is just a dream. I would love to see Shaw dressed as, like, in a shaman outfit when you go and you see because obviously in the first trailer for Godzilla X Kong, you see Giant, she's in, like, the traditional Iwi. She obviously gets the finding Iwi tribe in the Hollow Earth at some point in Godzilla X Kong. You see it in the trailer. So they're showing it, so they're letting you know that there is people down there. It would be hilarious, and I think is a cameo, and you didn't expect it. If there's Shaw in the Iwi gear, and he was found by the Iwis,
and then he just comes back, with it. Yeah.
That would be a fun twist, but this is what I would like. I would like for each season to do what I don't think they'll do time jumps. I think it's been done. They've explained the Axis Mundi. They've done all that. They explain probably why Godzilla's the age he is and to fill in the gap between 2014 and beyond. But I think the second season will be completely focused on Skull Island. I don't think they'll feature Godzilla at all unless you see him on the television in a clip. And I think the whole season 2, if they do, it'll be to continue to build on the family dynamic and the love triangle, but also it'd be interesting to see how Keiko's adapting to the modern world. I can see her struggling and she wishes she was dead and she's depressed and this isn't her world anymore. I think that, but then obviously we're going to see the rise of Apex. We're going to see characters who are probably new villainous characters be introduced. And obviously, if you remember in the beginning of Godzilla vs. Kong, when they're on Skull Island, it says Monarch Outpost, Skull Island Outpost. So it'll be interesting to see how the Apex facility became a Monarch Outpost, because I don't think Monarch know that Apex are on the island.
True.
And I think that all should be explored, and I think they will probably introduce a handful of another life that's on Skull Island, but I think there'll be a rematch between the Skull Crawlers and Kong.
Oh yeah,
And I think they'll explain how Apex got their hands on Skull Crawler eggs.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be the focus of season 2. Going beyond that, I think there'll be it all depends on the success of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. And I generally believe if this does succeed, there will be a season 2. I think it's guaranteed because it's done well worldwide. But they're waiting to see the success of the box office of that. So if that makes well box office, the season 2's guaranteed. As for film-wise, because it's getting goofier and goofier, the one thing I don't fucking want is Space Godzilla.
No,
I do not want Space.
We don't need to bring aliens in yet.
But because it was teased in King of the Monsters, we're heading to Destroyer.
Well, here's the thing though too, because you can, with Apex, you can do a lot of different things. Like they already did the whole like using Ghidorah's head to control Mechagodzilla. So we know the technology is there. So I mean, personally, I'd like to see Gigan because it was teased in like the books that were leading up to King of the Monsters. But if Apex is the kind of company that tests on animals and stuff, it's not far-fetched to think that they might not take Godzilla DNA and try to create another version or a monstrous version of Godzilla. So.
Yeah, I think season 2 will be exploring the ins and outs of how Apex works and how you'll see, just like in Rogue One where you saw the plans for the Death Star.
Yes.
I think you'll see there's plans for Mechagodzilla, but not the actual beginning of his getting built, because I don't think he started getting built till either in between or after 2019 King of the Monsters. So I think all of season 2 will be to explore the ins and outs of that in Skull Island, and then I think if there is future series and they do want to films and they want to continue with the Monarch thing, the Apex thing, I think Apex would be rebranded again to something else, then that would lead to Gigan. Otherwise, I think Apex is done after Mechagodzilla ripping half of, Tokyo up, China up, or Hong Kong, that was down to Apex, so I think that'll be totally bankrupt, totally gone. Unless there's another company that steals technology from the Apex.
And there always is another company that will steal technology. That's just how it works.
Well, look at the Terminator latest films, Genesis, that. But what was I going to say? So this is what I would like.
Okay.
I want Destroyer, but I want Hedorah, I want Megalon, and I want Biollante. And this is what I think will happen.
Biollante.
There's one thing I'll say about the second trailer that you weren't privy of, Neko, but it won't spoil it. But
it's important though.
It's important. It's what one of the characters said. There's some dialogue, and the dialogue.
Oh, you're not talking what I'm talking about. Okay.
Oh no, not that. The dialogue. Well, listen. Well, I'm not going to spoil.
There's no facts. It's just theory.
This is just what the character said. So the character said, the Titans are the protectors of the earth, and the apes, the great apes, are protectors of humanity. So that is something that was said in the trailer. So basically the Titans, Godzilla, is protecting the earth, and the apes are protecting humanity. Kong's protecting us.
Well, they kind of mentioned that in King of the Monsters. They talked about how Godzilla and Kong are both Earth protectors. So they're both alphas.
So why I want them to bring in Destroyer and all of these characters within a 2-part story, part 1 and part 2 say destroy all monsters is because if you think of Godzilla and they are naturally born creatures of this earth. So what happens when a mutation tries to invade or take over and starts attacking? Obviously, the Earth Titans will fight back. So I think just like how they hinted with Ghidorah being the new alpha of basically the Titans of Earth, even though he's an outside entity from space, I think there'll be a new regime of creatures who are the mutations. You'll have Destroyer, you'll have Hedorah, you'll have Biollante, you'll have Megalon.
I don't think they'll bring in Hedorah. I don't think he'll be one. Just because it's very difficult to come up with like a smog monster in terms of.
But don't have to make him like a smog monster. They could make him like a fungus monster and alternate it.
I think, but see, that's a good point. I think if they do that, the best ones you could probably play with would be Megalon or Biollante, because then you can sit there and say, well, the genes or the things that from Ghidorah's demise like seeped into the soil and created and mutated these creatures that you're talking about. So
that's
like Megalon's like a giant cockroach, basically.
You have just hit the nail right on the head where I was headed with this. Because as you know, I know these films like the back of my fucking hand. So we get the Destroyer, we get the Oxygen Destroyers released, bang, it's going to create Destroyer. But there is
we already had the Oxygen Destroyer.
No. But he's saying it would help create Destroyer.
Okay.
So
Destroyer
this is something. So this is something I read in an article with Michael Dougherty, the director of Godzilla King of the Monsters. He stated that even though Ghidorah's dead, the aftermath of him affecting nature and the weather, it's going to have a long-term effect for years to come, like a nuclear bomb. But this time it's like an alien presence is going to have effect. So, and what he said is, if you look at the scene where right there when they see the end, the last Ghidorah head that gets found by him out of Game of Thrones, I forgot his name, Charles Dance.
Yeah.
He is there, and what Michael Dougherty said, did you ever notice there were flies flying around the head, licking and eating off the carcass of Ghidorah, alien DNA? Now, no one knows how that's going to affect the fly and the mutation it could cause. So that's why I think if there's going to be a Destroy All Monsters type movie, my prediction is it's going to be the natural titans of the earth versus these unwanted mutations that no one has a fucking clue how to handle because they've never been seen before.
You're a genius. You got to copyright this shit. Make sure you copyright this shit if they steal your ideas.
I mean, that's...
Because that's actually a great setup.
So, and it also kind of...
flies go, too. Like, flies go everywhere. So
if it's forest flies, they'll bite people. And
you could spread that alien
You know who
DNA
I was thinking
everywhere.
of? I was thinking of Megaguirus.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking this could all lead to them bringing in a brand new King Ghidorah, like Death Destroyer, because that head's, his DNA is in the earth. Who to say he doesn't the DNA or part of his destroyed body has latched onto something and he's slowly been grown, re-energizing for years and years, eating off the planet's resources.
Yeah.
Because you've seen his head regrow after getting bit off by Godzilla. It could happen again. He could be slowly out there, still growing somewhere.
Which would be great for Biollante, because you figure whenever the kaiju rose, like when Godzilla first rose, one thing that Russell pointed out was there was like this regrowth from the destruction. It was like plants and moss and stuff. So Biollante is basically plant life that's just mutated.
Well, it said in the video clip, at the end credits, like, Behemoth.
Yeah.
Behemoth basically, when he's in Brazil, he's walking through the rainforest and basically shitting everywhere. And his shit basically reforested the forests of Brazil.
Yeah.
So they're like a natural, they're like, it's like, obviously we use fertilizer, cow shit, horse shit for plants.
There you
So
go.
imagine,
Size,
imagine kaiju size shit.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, ew.
It's like the worst way to go.
So that's my theory, and that's where I personally, and I think it's a natural progression, and it's quite grounded, and it's keeping to the law of Godzilla, and it will bring you not one big bad to the forefront, it'll bring you two.
Multiple,
It'll bring you. Everyone wants to see Destroyer, and everyone wants to see Biollante. Everyone assumed Biollante when they heard Origins was going to be in Godzilla X Kong. But it's obviously been.
Is, but I gotta look at him.
Oh, he's like basically
I know who he is. All right.
He's basically devil. He's like the devil in kaiju form.
He has a horn.
So, I think it would be great at the beginning. Yes, the reveal Destroyer right off the bat in the first film, and you think that's it. And there's a mass kaiju battle at the end of the first film, and you think Godzilla's won, but then Destroyer gives out an epic roar, and out of the ground bursts Biollante, and the tide has suddenly turned. End part 1, let's get to part 2 of this 2-part Monsterverse final. Yeah, that's just something I come up with.
You got like some really great ideas. He's been thinking about this a lot.
No, I mean, like he and I should get together, go
write your own.
Take our scripts to the Hollywood execs at Legendary and say, "This is what we want. This is what the people want.
Make it so. Make it happen."
Yeah, we found all the ways to tie everything in. Here you go. We've got the answers.
And you make all of the G fans happy because you're pulling in a lot of the kaiju.
Yeah, they still have to get all the permissions, but that'd still be cool.
I did have an idea for Gigan, but it would be too dark to put into the film. So basically, Gigan, after the end of Skull Island, on the end of Gigan is a creature who's living peacefully on Skull Island and gets captured by Apex, and they start just doing like illegal experimentation until the point that he's no longer has his own mind. He's been tortured. Basically, the scenes would have to look more horrible than the scenes of Rocket in Guardians. They fully emphasise the torture, and he would become a villainous character, but to redeem himself he starts remembering who he is, and by in the end I could see Gigan becoming an anti-hero and going against the other monsters, or just destroying Apex and flying off into the distance. And I think that would be.
Let's just say Kong's not around, and you have Biollante and Destroyer facing off against Godzilla. If Gigan is a part of that sequence of events, then you could be right. If that's what happens, like he's like remembering.
Gigan could be the one who turns the tide and helps them go against Destroyer. And
we can't forget about Mothra. Like she, lays eggs. Those often
she
come
always
back.
Comes back.
So that's another possibility.
Well, that was my idea of doing this 2-part final. You'll have Godzilla, you'll have Kong, and then it will be the perfect opportunity to bring Rodan back in a new version of Mothra.
Yep.
I still want to see a standalone Rodan movie.
And Mothra.
Like
both, but
right now,
back
in Mayan times where they're like worshipping the fire god. That's what I want. Like
that would be sweet.
But that's us talking beyond the Monsterverse and the dreams for the Monsterverse. But Monarch Season 1, you give it a 9 out of 10.
I said a 9.
You give it
did everything
8.
I wanted.
I give it a 7. But all great scores, still on the higher end. And it was a pleasant surprise. It was a joy to watch. It made you think. It, like you say, it's clearly made me fucking think about the Monsterverse and beyond.
What's gonna happen next? Yeah.
So yes, final thoughts.
I think I liked it so much because, again, 2014 hit something in me with the Godzilla universe more than I even imagined, because I've been watching Godzilla for years. But what really got me was the Monarch side, like the whole secret society, the whole secret experiments. And when you're bringing that to the forefront, that really, and that's probably why I gave it a 9, because you're starting to dig into the other side of, like, Godzilla's just not Godzilla. There's a whole like secret government experiment, whatever is going on, and that really, it just hit something for me. And I really love the show. I really love all Godzilla things, but because this literally was filling that gap from the 2014 movie, which I also loved so much, I'm ready. I'm ready for more Monarch.
Your
Yep,
final
same
thought,
here.
Anubis?
Same thing. Like I came out liking it. They could have really bombed. I didn't think they bombed at all. I thought they did a good job. And like I said, it was a little clumsy along the way, but overall, it ended perfectly. And it sets up a lot of stuff they can do.
A
And,
lot of possibilities.
yeah, I'm ready.
It answered a lot of questions, but it opened a lot of questions and opened a lot of doors.
Yeah.
So my final thoughts are, I enjoyed the show. I thought it was a pleasant surprise, and people always bitch that you can't have good human stories in with monsters, kaiju. We had Godzilla -1, which was the ultimate human story mixed in with monsters. Now, when it comes to the Western side, the American side of that, Monarch is probably the closest we've got to it, and it was enjoyable. So, with all that said, it's been great, talking about Monarch, talking about Godzilla,
Talking about
kaiju,
monsters.
all that shit that I love, that you love. Is there anything before we go that you would like to promote coming to your channel?
Yeah. So tomorrow, I will be seeing you again at 2
Me?
p.m. Eastern, along with
2 p.m. Eastern. So what
Eastern.
time is that? That's
It's gonna be
7 p.m. your time.
Yep. And I'll have Mr. Lambert, Sci-Fi Century, Big Bad Wolf, and Jedi Grand Vale. We're going to be reviewing a video on Godzilla, why Godzilla does not work in America, apparently. So we're going to be reacting to the video.
People are stupid.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun because I have not watched it. I've been holding off, so I want to get my opinions as well as everyone else's on how they feel about what the guy's saying. And from what I've understand, he's very misinformed. So we will correct him on that through that video. And then next week, I believe it's going to be Thursday. Let me just
look at the calendar here. What are we doing next Thursday?
Let me see. Yep, next Thursday, I'm doing another Lone Wolf with Dub. I'll be doing Anbach. I'll be reviewing that movie.
Oh, I love that.
And then later, I'll be back on this channel.
Woohoo!
Doing top 10 sci-fi movies in the past 15 years with Mr. Lambert. So yeah.
And then you and Tony the Dead are doing
something on Friday.
On Friday.
No, I'm looking forward to that. So
we haven't talked to Tony in a while.
Yeah, so
I've never seen him. He used to go a lot on Samurai's channel, and I've never seen him. He used to do the verses and that. I've never seen him on there for a while. But I like his channel. He's got some great content.
Yeah, he has. He's been getting some of his live stuff in order, but then I know
he's got 2 kids.
He's also on Master Chaos a lot, so he's with Jose a lot on stuff. They're talking videos and stuff like that.
And I think too, like when he gets on his own channel, it's usually like at the kids are asleep. He's doing his own thing late, so it's kind of hard to like convince people to go on it. Like
I think if we're gonna do something, maybe like 11 a.m.
Yeah,
because that's the time that he's usually up. So.
Well, coming to my channel, you've mentioned it. This Thursday, I believe we're doing my top 10 current favourite sci-fi movies of the last 10 to 15 years.
It's a hard one.
I have 2 other things I'll be working on. I'm working on the Friday the 13th franchise discussion with Anthony Jordan. That's going to be coming to the channel soon. I'm going to be doing another My Top 10 after this one because this is leading into the, me events coming up in March. So my next top 10 will be the one I put a poll on the channel. And the
Okay.
poll was, there were a handful of thingies in samurai movies won the poll. So I'm going to be doing
cool.
my top 10 samurai movies, and then I will probably do the runner-up of that poll, which was disaster movies. So if you two would like to be a part of one of those, you're more than welcome. Like, San Andreas 2012, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. I don't know if there's too many disasters. I mean, I did like Armageddon and Deep Impact.
But they're also kind of they're kind of sci-fi too, a little bit. So
yeah,
but they are more disaster than sci-fi.
So I'm doing those two. I've got that coming, and I've got another Kaiju classic film review, part of Kaiju Collections. I'm bringing on Thrash Pondu is coming to the channel.
Nice.
And he is going to be reviewing Them, 1954.
Nice.
And he's got a lot of facts and trivia around that film. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll probably mention the remake we're doing and my expectations of that. But so far, that's what I've got coming to the channel. You've got some great stuff.
Keep yourself busy.
Keeping myself busy. I don't have time for a real life. What can I tell you? But
this
anyway,
is real life.
This is real, yeah. What are you talking
this
about?
This is real life. Hanging out, talking about things I love, movies, kaiju, all that good shit. But anyway, it's been a pleasure having you both on the channel.
Thank you so much for having me. I know we talked about this the last couple of weeks.
I love yous to bits. Yous are great friends as well as great content creators. Everybody, this is DJ Anubis. This is DJ Neko. Please check out the Metal Tavern Radio for great heavy metal content and mix it in with some great movie content. This has been the end.
Channel over here.
Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, wrong
Thank
side.
you. So this has been the entertainment headquarters, and of course, this has been Kaiju Konnections Monarch Season 1 discussion. As I always say, keep loving monsters, keeping the Kaiju alive. And from me, Neko and Anubis, we'll catch us all at the next one.